You can't release anything that you don't surrender to. So people will say, oh, just let it go. And I get annoyed with that because people who say, oh, just let it go, they really don't understand even what they're saying, because you can't let go of something that you don't surrender to. Can I let go of a cinder block that is weighing me down if I don't first surrender to the fact that, oh my gosh, there's a cinder block that is chained to my leg? No, I can't let go of the cinder block until I first psychologically and emotionally and spiritually and physically accept that there is a cinder block weighing me down. So this idea of surrender is very important, because you must surrender. You must surrender to everything. If you want to move energy in your body, if you want to change the way you feel about certain things, you have to surrender to whatever it is that you feel. That's number one. And the premise behind that is like, well, if I surrender to it, then I can see it, because I can't fix a hole in the wall I can't see, right? So one of the big things, for example, in my life was I had to surrender to this idea that I was so unhappy in my first marriage, but I didn't want to be. So I had cognitive dissonance. I felt something and I knew something in my body, but I didn't want that to be reality. So I was stuck. And when I finally figured out how to flush this out and flesh this out, it was like, oh my gosh, eureka, alleluia, and amen. Here comes the Joyce Myers in me. And it wasn't until I realized I have to surrender to the fact that I feel so unhappy, that every ounce of my being knows that I am unhappy in this marriage. That was really one of the hardest steps in my emotional recovery work and journey, because as a codependent, now you're not just codependent, there's a reason, because this is a cause and effect universe. Everything is cause and effect. Every car that you see, every street that you see, every skyline, that is the effect, and there is a cause. Somebody dreamt that into being. So everything is cause and effect. And before anybody picks up a chisel and a hammer to do anything, there is the thought first. There is the temptation or the energy that comes up, reaches the mind, and then it becomes made manifest by the actions and the decisions that you take, right? So I was stuck because I could not accept how unhappy I was, because I was conditioned as a codependent to distrust what I felt. When you come from a home of childhood emotional neglect, you are experiencing abuse by omission versus commission. So abuse by omission is something didn't happen that you needed to have self-autonomy, to have self-worth, to have a sense of self, and to feel like you are capable to manage your environment. Something was missing, and that's neglect. That's abuse by omission. And so we want to understand that if we're codependent, we don't get stuck in, oh, I'm codependent, I'm ashamed, I'm an inverted narcissist, as like a lot of people like to say. We don't want to get stuck there, right? That's like getting stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Dear, when you have to go deeper, that's where your true recovery is. So I am codependent, okay, or I have been created and manifest as a codependent, but why? What is the cause and effect nature of this program in my mind that is now causing me to be addicted to needing approval, or codependent on someone else's validation? What is it within me that makes me super uncomfortable with other people being anxious? What is it in me that has caused me to believe that I am unsafe, causes my nervous system to feel unsafe if other people are anxious? What is it in me that causes me to feel like, uh-oh, they're anxious, I have to fix it? I'm the quicker picker-upper, I have the broom, I am the mop. I have no sense of self. I live with my antenna out, I am hypervigilant, I am scanning the environment for who's upset and who needs something, and I jump in to fix it. I am an enabler, I am a fixer, but why? And what you will find if you stay on the journey long enough, especially if you resonate with my work, is that it always goes back to childhood, okay? And caveat here, doesn't mean that our parents did this on purpose. It just means that while we were developing our little psyche, our psychological personality, small self, which is not your true self, that is sort of like the personality or the mask that you wear while you're here until you awaken. We are all subject to what went in until we awaken and we decide what we want to believe. What a beautiful journey. So the first part of moving this energy is surrendering to what you really feel. And which is new, because if you come from emotional neglect, you're going to really struggle with that. Your nervous system is going to be screaming, "No, I don't want to feel that. It's dangerous." Blah 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 blah. Your nervous system is going to make a decision about your behavior before your conscious mind even registers that. Don't believe me? Look it up. It's neuroscience. Okay. The second part is that the minute you acknowledge that you have resistance or you have unhappiness or you have these angry feelings or you're very critical of the people in your life or you're critical of yourself or you feel victimized, you feel powerless, it's not open for debate. That's how you feel. We want to suspend the carnal mind's desire to figure out why I feel that way. Just accept and surrender that you feel that way. Don't get all mental about it. Just, wow, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. This is how I feel. This is how I feel, right? Then the next step is to say to yourself, now that I've found this feeling, which is energy, now that I found these emotions, really, because emotions are energy in motion. Now that I have articulated them, I have made conscious contact with the emotions. This is my truth. I'm unhappy. I am very displeased with my relationship with my husband, or I can't stand my narcissistic wife or my narcissistic mom or whatever. This is really how I feel. I'm really angry at my daughter. I'm really angry at my son. This is how I feel. No more resistance to how you feel. You spend some time in that space. All right, you want to put a number on it? 5 minutes. Spend 5 minutes and like, wow, this is really how I feel. You've made contact with the energy. Now that you've made contact with the energy, now you can see the cinder block that's been chained to your foot. Only when you can see it, can you fix it, can you change it, can you move it. Once you make conscious contact with it, there's the hole in the wall. What you want to do is you want to say to yourself, I now release all resistance and all suffering tied to these emotions. I completely accept that these are the emotions that are stirring within me right now. I am no longer willing to suffer or be in resistance to these emotions. I am no longer willing to be in resistance to how I truly feel. This is where the magic starts to happen. I like to use the analogy of this idea that the Earth spins in one orbit. It spins in one particular direction. So think of that as like universal. That's a universal truth. And we can see this in nature. We can see it in physics. We can see it in the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. We know that trees grow from below the soil to above. So there's a natural order of things in the universe. And what controls the atoms that control a tree growing from below to above, straight up towards the sun, think of human beings and human emotion being subject to the same type of a law. Think about a human being that feels a certain thing and refuses to allow themselves to feel that thing. That would be akin to a seedling saying, nope, I'm not rising towards the sun. I think I'm going to make a left, or I think I'm going to make a right. That would put nature into disorder because the trees or the plant kingdom would not be following a particular order. This is where we get disordered minds. When our minds are going against itself, the natural order is to accept how I feel now. Someone might argue, well, you have a psychopath out there. I'm not talking about psychopaths. I'm talking about the average, healthy human being that has empathy and doesn't have a so-called psychopathy disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, or really even someone who's got the dark triad going. We're talking about the average human being that knows on a heart level it's not okay to hurt anyone, who knows that they can't justify hurting anyone. Now, we all have that carnal impulse, that root impulse, that ego impulse, you hurt me, I hurt you, but that keeps this dysfunctional and disordered karma loop going. It doesn't solve the issue. We want to escape this carnal mind. We want to escape this karma. We want to escape this process. I'm trying to offer you a very sacred process and pathway that I choose in my own life to help me as I'm healing from codependency, as I'm healing from attachment issues, as I'm healing from narcissistic abuse, as I'm gaining control over my mind and over my thoughts and over my energy and how I think and how I show up in the world. This is how I do it. So the first thing that we want to do is you want to get in the practice of accepting how you feel. That takes you out of the program. The minute you say, how do I feel? You're not reacting to how you feel. That's genius. That's brilliant. If I don't say so myself, like it's so smart, right? And it's so silly and it's so simple. Like, wow, when I notice that I had a feeling and I'm reacting like I'm being passive aggressive, the minute I know or feel that emotion coming on, and I can sense that's the pattern I'm going to go into, I'm not in the reactive mode anymore. But let's say you're so far advanced now where you can see all the patterns and you don't want to resurrect those patterns anymore. You want to ascend those patterns. This is the process that you would do. How do I feel? How do I feel? I surrender to exactly how I feel. I'm not sugarcoating it. This is between me and my higher self. This is really how I feel. I'm not going to allow myself to say, but I don't want to feel that way. I'm going to go back to, but you do feel that way. I'm going to be my own best friend from Queens, New York, the big sister that tells me like it is to myself. I know you don't want to feel that way, but you do. That will reduce cognitive dissonance. That will reduce confusion. This is how I feel. This is really how I feel. Imagine now, wow, this is how I feel. That's the hole in the wall. Now you can see it. The second thing that you want to do, and just referring to my notes, the second thing that you want to do is you want to ask, and this might sound hokey pokey to some of you, okay, that's fine, but it's what I do. I'm just sharing what I do. This is my platform. This is what I share for people who are interested in doing some of the work that I do. What I do then is I ask my higher self to help reduce and release any resistance and suffering tied to these feelings. Now, getting back to the Earth spinning in a particular orbit. That is me spinning in order. Truth is order. Truth sets you free. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it sets you free. When you are feeling something, but your nervous system is like, you're not allowed to feel that, because if you feel that, you can't control that person. Or if you feel that, you might want a divorce, or you feel that you might want to set a boundary and go no contact with your family. And we just don't have the data in the memory bank for what that's going to look like, or the data that we have in the memory bank is that something bad's going to happen if you start to set a boundary. So just don't set that boundary. That's the Earth trying to spin out of order. That's the Earth trying to spin in the wrong direction. And that's why we have chaos in our lives. That's why we have chaos in our bodies. That's why we have inflammation in our bodies, because we're not telling our divine truth. And when I say divine, I mean sacred, I mean authentic. And that's how important it is to tell your truth. Now, the last thing that I want to offer you is this idea that you want to really start respecting. This is scientific. Your nervous system makes decisions before your conscious mind. And the only way to hack this system is to calm your nervous system. This is one of the ways to calm your nervous system. By validating how you feel, you're calming your nervous system. By saying this really is the way I feel, and knowing you don't have to do anything about how you feel. The only thing that I ask you to do is to ask yourself, your higher self, to reduce the resistance and the suffering that is associated with how you feel. I ask my higher self to help me release any resistance and suffering to how I feel. Now, when you do that, you are allowing your body to return to a baseline. Cognitive dissonance starts to slow down. Mental confusion starts to slow down. You find a new jumping off place. You find that there's a lot more stress in your body. And if you do that over and over, and it doesn't matter how long it takes to get you there, you just have to do it over and over and over. What you'll find is that you will suddenly start to get ideas. You'll start to feel inklings and instincts that you didn't feel before because you weren't allowing yourself to line up with your divine truth. Last story. When I finally got to a place where I said, I really am unhappy and my truth is that this relationship is over, and that happened, I was very grateful and lucky because he came home from his last therapy session and said, quite frankly, I'm not changing. And I thought, okay, you just made this very easy for me. Because if you're not changing, then I can't realistically expect in the future any more than what we've just had for 12 years. And it's been pretty painful for me. Even though you kept telling me I was crazy, I had no right to feel that way. When I finally accepted that truth, I'm telling you, all the stories that you hear about the bridge appears and when one door closes, 10 more open, it's true. And you don't have to, well, a lot of people, like they hear a story and they have faith, they walk by sight. They don't walk by sight, they walk by faith. And I get that. But when you do it, when you start getting into this practice, and you don't do it once, you do it for months, you do it for years, you do it for however long it takes for you to feel less resistant to your truth. Why? So that your true authentic self can come online, which is what happened to me. So I'm telling you from experience, I could speak with authority on this. This works. First part of my life, I was out of order. Yeah, I had an anxiety disorder. I had a panic disorder. Why? Because the little universe that I was trying to go against the natural law, which is natural law is truth. And the minute I started to accept my truth, even though I was punished for it, even though my mother said, oh, she's crazy, even though my family said, oh, she's a drama queen, I just kept lining up with my truth, lining up my truth, lining up my truth. I wasn't cruel to anybody, or at least I don't think so. I hope I wasn't. But the more I lined up with my truth, whether it was, I'm afraid, I don't know what step to take next. And then it was, okay, I don't know what step to take next. I release all anxiety and all frustration and all suffering tied to not knowing what to do next. It was just, that was my practice over and over and over and over and over. I finally accept that I'm unhappy. And what happens? I find a house on my favorite block in the town that I grew up in, right around the corner from my best friend. Perfect. I get the house. I find the lawyer to help me sell my house and buy this house. Synchronicity. Because I was lining up with my truth. So the earth that I was started spinning with divine law. And what I wanted started to come to me. So the next step filled in all on its own. Then I got the job. Then I got the clients. Then I got the car that I needed. Then I got the money that I needed to send my children to school. It was just going and going and going. So rather than spiraling down, like imagine a tree going in the wrong direction, going against nature, I started to spiral up. And when I think about it in terms of energy, I think about the chakra system. My energy started to open, my chakra system started to spin, all my chakras started to spin in the right direction. And if this turns you off, just look up energy. Just look up the chakra system. You are an energy being, dear one. Like if this talking about energy is like, what is she talking about? You are energetic. Every atom of your being is full of light. So if you open your mind a little bit and you are not so closed-minded to these types of ideas, you can see how we have this speaking of light and vortexes spiraling up and living in the higher chakras, which is really living from the prefrontal lobe and the neocortex, which is the CEO of your brain. You make better decisions from this prefrontal lobe. You make better decisions when the neocortex is activated, when you are no longer entrapped by Amy the amygdala and Harry the hippocampus. You come online. Who comes online? The true you. Until you have these awakenings and until you develop the practice of coming home to the true self, which I call self-reclamation, until you do that, then you remain locked below the veil of consciousness. You're not living your authentic truth, and you are out of order from and with who and what you truly are. And that's just not enough for me. I just had a coaching session with a dear client of mine. She's like, so Lisa, how many times do I have to do this? I said, you do it until you feel like it's cleared, until you have no negative reaction to whatever this thing is that you were struggling with. Married to a narcissist? Do this process. Surrender to how you feel, and then ask your higher self to help you release any resistance and suffering tied to how you feel. You'll start to line up with your truth, and your next step will be laid out before you. You won't even have to think that much about it. And so you do this because it helps you clear the water. You do it because every time you do it, you get a little bit clearer. You do it because every time you do it, and it doesn't matter how damn long you have to do it. I'm committed. I'll do it for the rest of my life. I'm excited that when I notice a negative scarcity mindset in me, or I notice some anxiety about one of my kids or business or whatever, the world, whatever, my husband, his kids, my grandchildren, when I notice, but I'm above the veil, I try to be, when I notice that start to get activated, that's when I immediately surrender to how I feel, and then I ask my higher self to help me release any resistance and any attachment and any suffering to these ideas. I know I'm clearing. And that is exciting to me. I'm not looking for a one-off. I'm not looking to do one meditation and be cleared. That's just not feasible. We never get it done. But what we can do is move closer and closer and closer to our higher self. While we are still in the physical body, we can clear what blocks us from living an ordered life, which is getting into alignment with our truth, which is getting into alignment with who and what we truly are, despite what other people think and what other people want. We're not cruel about it. We say namaste, we walk away, we slide the candy bar to the left, we say namaste, we say pass the butter, we say it could be no other way, that these people are living below the veil and they see me this way. I am challenging what they perceive about me, so their reactions are normal. I surrender to, I have anxiety around how they're treating me, and I ask my higher self to please help me release any resistance, any suffering, any attachments, that it should be anything other than what it is. You are free. You are becoming a sovereign human being at that level. But again, dear one, this takes time. I accept, and that's why I leave my model of an anatomical brain on my desk, because it reminds me that this is a neurological journey. This is neuroscience. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So I fully accept that my brain may have been wired negatively and in a disorderly way, which is disowning myself because I was codependent and I was raised by a mother who disowned herself, from my narcissistic father, who even disowned himself and lived through his ego. I accept that. I accept the beauty of my brain, the beauty of neurology. I accept that my nervous system has been wired this way. And the minute I surrender to that, I find the doorway that no man can shut. I find the upper chamber of higher consciousness where this work can take place. I so hope that excites you as much as it excites me. When you get to this level, there ain't nobody that can hold you down, dear one, because every time someone tries to throw a tomato at you, every time someone tries to dig you, every time someone tries to pull you back into their lair, you get to say, I surrender to what's happening, and I ask the higher self to clear any attachment to this, any resistance to this, any suffering, any frustration. You are free. And I don't know how long it will take you, but one day, like my life has changed, your life will completely transform. The only way that I could be sitting here addressing you the way I'm addressing you right now is because I have done this work. I am committed to this work. And I have helped thousands of people make it to living above the veil of consciousness. The power has been within you all along. Dorothy had those ruby slippers. She clicked 3 times. That 1, 2, 3, that represents this idea of repetition. Repetition is required to rewire the subconscious mind. Everything's been a dream. You've been home the entire time. You just needed to learn how to bring your conscious mind online. And I hope that as one of your guides, this has been helpful. Namaste. As I bow to the love and light that is absolutely in you, even if you can't feel it, there's a light inside of you, dear one, and you were born to find it, resurrect it, empower it, and let it shine. Hey, if you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz.